The moment Daniel realized the woman standing at his table was not the catering manager, his chest tightened in a way he hadn't felt since the night the hospital room went quiet, and his whole world split into before and after. He had come to the cafe only to survive another evening, juggling coffee cups and homework schedules in his head, when fate decided to pull a chair across from him and sit down unannounced. The mistake seemed small at first, almost laughable, but something in the way she smiled, uncertain yet hopeful, made his heart stumble like it had forgotten how to beat for anything but responsibility. Before the story pulls you deeper, pause for a second. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen when people least expect them, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps these stories find the hearts they're meant for. Daniel's life had narrowed to a careful routine after his wife passed away 3 years earlier. Mornings were about packing lunches for 3 identical boys who somehow managed to have completely different personalities. Afternoons were about work, spreadsheets, and pretending he wasn't constantly tired. Evenings were about homework battles, burnt dinners, and collapsing into bed with a dull ache behind his eyes. Romance, or even companionship, felt like a language he used to speak fluently but had since forgotten. When his coworker Emily approached the table with an awkward laugh and an apology ready, Daniel assumed she had simply mistaken his table for another reservation. The cafe was busy, and mistakes happened. He was already rehearsing how to gently wave her away when he noticed the small detail that unraveled everything, the reservation card on the table, neatly written, with his name and hers together. The confusion thickened, but beneath it was something else, something unsettling and warm. Emily wasn't just any coworker. She was the quiet one in accounting, the woman who brought homemade cookies during stressful weeks and listened more than she spoke. Daniel had always noticed her kindness from a distance, the way she remembered birthdays and asked about his boys without prying. Still, he had never imagined sitting across from her like this, candles flickering between them, the air heavy with unspoken questions. As realization dawned, embarrassment flushed through him, quickly followed by a spark of suspicion that felt almost impossible. This wasn't an accident. Someone had planned this. At home, 3 pairs of small sneakers were lined up by the door, just as they always were. Daniel's triplets were 7 years old enough to understand loss but young enough to believe in simple solutions. They had watched their father fade into autopilot, had felt the house grow quieter and heavier. Children notice these things even when adults think they hide them well. Over the past months, they had whispered together more often, shared glances that felt conspiratorial, and asked pointed questions about why Dad never laughed like he used to. Daniel had chalked it up to their growing curiosity, never suspecting that those small minds were busy plotting something far bigger than a prank. Back at the cafe, the initial awkwardness slowly softened. Emily's nervous energy mirrored his own, and in that shared discomfort, something genuine began to form. They talked about work at first, safe and neutral, but gradually drifted toward life beyond the office. Emily spoke of moving to the city after a difficult breakup, of rebuilding herself piece by piece. Daniel spoke of his boys, of the chaos and love that filled his home, of how every day felt like both a victory and a loss. There was no grand confession, no dramatic gesture, just 2 people slowly lowering their guards. For the first time in years, Daniel felt seen not just as a father or an employee, but as a man, who still had a heart capable of responding. Yet guilt crept in alongside that warmth. Enjoying this moment felt like a betrayal to the memory of his wife, as if happiness were something he had forfeited when she died. He excused himself briefly, standing by the cafe window, watching strangers pass by with lives untouched by his particular grief. He reminded himself that surviving did not mean forgetting, that loving again did not erase what had been. Still, the internal struggle was fierce, a quiet battle between loyalty to the past and the possibility of a future that didn't feel so heavy. When Daniel returned to the table, something had shifted. Emily looked at him with a softness that held no expectations, only understanding. They finished the evening without labeling it anything, both aware that naming it might shatter the fragile peace they had found. As they parted ways, Daniel felt a lightness he hadn't known was missing, like stepping outside after a long illness and realizing the air no longer hurt to breathe. The truth revealed itself later that night, in the most unexpected way. Daniel came home to find his triplets sitting on the living room floor, unusually quiet, their eyes wide with anticipation. It didn't take long for the story to spill out in a tumble of excitement and poorly concealed pride. They had overheard him mention Emily at dinner weeks ago, had noticed the way his voice changed when he talked about her. With the fearless logic only children possess, they decided that what their dad needed was a push. They used his phone, with help from a tech-savvy neighbor, to coordinate the reservation, believing wholeheartedly that love was something you could schedule if you tried hard enough. Daniel's initial reaction was shock, then frustration, then something that surprised him, gratitude so deep it brought tears to his eyes. His boys had seen his loneliness and tried in their own innocent way to fix it. He gathered them into his arms, holding them tightly, feeling both the weight of their small bodies and the enormity of their hearts. That night, after they fell asleep, Daniel sat alone on the couch, replaying the evening in his mind, and allowed himself to consider that maybe happiness wasn't something he had lost forever. The weeks that followed were marked by small changes. Emily and Daniel began spending more time together, slowly and carefully, respecting the fragile balance of his family life. She met the boys in small doses, earning their approval not through grand gestures but through patience and warmth. She listened to their endless stories, laughed at their jokes, and never tried to replace what they had lost. Daniel watched her fit into their lives like a missing piece he hadn't known how to look for. There were challenges, of course. Daniel wrestled with waves of doubt, moments when grief resurfaced without warning. Emily carried her own fears, worries about stepping into a family shaped by loss. But instead of pulling away, they faced these moments with honesty and compassion. Love, Daniel learned, wasn't about erasing pain. It was about choosing to stand beside someone even when the past lingered like a shadow. One evening, as Daniel tucked his boys into bed, one of them asked a simple question that landed with unexpected weight. They wanted to know if it was okay to be happy again. Daniel paused, realizing how much they had carried silently, mirroring his own unspoken fears. He told them yes with a certainty that surprised even him. He told them that happiness didn't mean forgetting, that love could grow in places once broken. As he turned off the light, he felt something settle inside him, a quiet acceptance that felt like peace. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still late nights, still moments of exhaustion, still days when grief whispered reminders of what had been lost. But there were also mornings filled with laughter, shared meals that felt warmer, and a sense of forward motion that Daniel hadn't felt in years. Emily became a steady presence, not a savior, but a partner walking alongside him as he learned how to live fully again. Just before we reach the end, take a moment and comment below what you think the boys' actions say about love and family. Your thoughts matter, and reading them helps build a community around stories like this. As time passed, Daniel often thought back to that first night at the cafe, to the simple mistake that wasn't a mistake at all. He understood now that healing doesn't always arrive quietly or on our terms. Sometimes it shows up disguised as confusion, orchestrated by three small boys with oversized hearts. Sometimes it sits across from you at a candlelit table, waiting patiently for you to notice. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love can find us even after loss, please like the video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive, reaching others who might be waiting for a sign that it's okay to hope again. Daniel's journey wasn't about finding a replacement for what he lost, but about discovering that his capacity to love had survived, stronger and deeper than before. And in that realization, he found not just companionship, but a renewed sense of life itself.